Say tricks.
Hey, did you make up this today or something? I like it.
It's time for the purple flavored Cowpoke. For our super, we are running Shadow Shot Deadfall for the Void Anchor with a large pool and duration. The Void Anchor weakens and suppresses enemies for 12 seconds but can be extended by half a second per tethered kill, up to a maximum of 25 seconds. We are running Marksman's Dodge to quickly reload our last word when needed. Stylish Executioner grants us invisibility for 7.8 seconds and True Sight for 4 seconds when we kill an enemy affected by a Void debuff. This effect can only be triggered every 2 seconds. While we are invisible from Stylish Executioner, our melee attacks will deal 150% more damage and weaken enemies for 5 seconds. Trapper's Ambush gives us another source for turning invisible by turning our melee charge into an air move. While in the air, you can activate Quickfall to dive to the ground and create a smoke cloud that will weaken enemies for 10 seconds. It will also turn you and any allies caught in the smoke invisible. Alternatively, you can throw your snare bomb near yourself or allies to turn invisible. In addition to our Marksman's Dodge, Echo of Domineering will reload our readied weapon when we suppress a target while also granting us 30 points of mobility for 10 seconds. Echo of Domineering also grants us 10 points of discipline. Echo of Starvation grants us Devour for 5 seconds after picking up an orb or Void Breach at the cost of 10 recovery. Echo of Persistence makes our Void buffs last 50% longer. This means Devour should now last 7.5 seconds, and our invisibility will now last up to 12 seconds depending on the source of invisibility. We will take a 10-point hit to our mobility for this fragment. Echo of Dilation was chosen purely to offset the Echo of Persistence hit to our mobility, but it also grants 10 points to Intellect, so feel free to swap this one out if you prefer. Our lucky pants are fitted with an illegally modded holster. Upon readying a hand cannon, this holster will grant plus 100 handling to ready speed, which means we will have the fastest hands in the West. The holster will also reduce our accuracy cone size by 30%, which is a fancy way of saying it reduces your bloom. Or, in other words, our bullets will have a tighter grouping, allowing us to have an easier time landing our shots. Our holster will also boost our airborne effectiveness by 20 points. If that wasn't enough, when we ready a fully loaded kinetic hand cannon or one of an element matching our subclass, each hit we land within 5.5 seconds will increase our weapon damage by an additive 60%. This buff ramps up to a maximum boost of 600% after landing 10 shots. When the buff runs out, or if we swap weapons, then we will have to wait 10 seconds before we can trigger this effect again. There are a lot of great hand cannons to combine with our lucky pants, but none of them will give you a stronger yeehaw than the last word. This 225 RPM kinetic beauty is at its finest when fired from the hip. Hip-fired hits will grant us stacks of fanfire. Each stack will grant us plus 5 reload speed and further increase our accuracy. You can obtain up to 4 stacks of fanfire, but all stacks are lost upon reloading or aiming down sights. All hip-fired precision hits with this weapon deal 30% more damage. For legendary weapons, I did something that is going to trigger many guardians. I ran double primary. On this variant of my Cowpoke build, I decided one hand cannon wasn't enough. In order to work with our lucky pants, our second hand cannon needs to be void. My favorite choice was a crafted targeted redaction with destabilizing rounds and triple tap. This hand cannon is great with lucky pants because of its large magazine combined with triple tap. My second choice was my Ichlos hand cannon crafted with repulsor brace and subsistence. The Ichlos also sports a large magazine but will still require a reload during the lucky pants buff when fighting a single target, but you will almost never need to reload when fighting waves of ads. There is some jank introduced when running 2 hand cannons with the lucky pants. Unfortunately, when your lucky pants luck runs out, you cannot switch to your other hand cannon to get the buff again. But you can switch to one hand cannon, use up the buff, then stick with that hand cannon until the cooldown wears off, and then switch to your other hand cannon to start the process again. I just wanted to take a moment to set your expectations that you cannot rapidly juggle the Lucky Pants buff. That'd be fun as hell, but also too badass for the game's health. For the heavy slot, I was running a Regnant grenade launcher crafted with explosive light and auto-loading holster. This one isn't crucial at all to the build, so you have plenty of flexibility for boss fights. But I do recommend sticking with something with auto-loading holster so that you can empty it into the boss and then switch to your last word while it reloads. For armor stats, you want to aim for 100 resilience for the 30% damage resistance, 100 discipline so we can get our suppression grenade as quickly as possible because remember, suppression reloads our readied weapon due to Echo of Domineering. Then, don't put any more than 70 points into mobility, since Echo of Domineering will also give us 30 points to mobility after we suppress an enemy. Then try to get strength as high as you can because our melee charge is our on-demand invisibility source. For our helmet, we have 1 kinetic and 1 harmonic siphon so our weapons print orbs and 1 ashes to assets so that our grenade kills give us bonus super energy. On our arms, we have 2 melee kickstarts so that our armor charge will refund some melee energy when we spend our melee charge. How much energy is refunded depends on how many stacks of armor charge we have. Each melee kickstart mod counts as a stack of charge towards this refund. We need to have at least 1 armor charge to proc the effect. But if we only had 1 armor charge, we would effectively have 3 charges towards our refund, which means we would get about 28% of our melee charge back. This is so we can have more opportunities to use quick fall and our snare bombs for invisibility. Then I threw on 1 fastball because why not? On our chest, we want 2 charged up mods so we can have 5 stacks of armor charge. This means we will effectively have 7 charges towards our melee refund. 5 from armor charge plus 2 from melee kickstart. With this, we will get about 43% of our melee charge refunded immediately. On our legs, we have 1 absolution for 5% energy to each ability when picking up orbs, then 1 orbs of restoration for 10% energy to the lowest ability charge for those same orb pickups. Then 1 recuperation for 70 health on orb pickup. You can sub this one out if you prefer because our orbs will also be granting us Devour due to Echo of Starvation. Our class item will have 2 powerful attractions so we can grab orbs from 18.5 meters away when we dodge, and 1 Reaper so our next weapon kill after dodging will generate an additional orb. When entering combat, use quick fall or snare bombs to weaken your enemies. Then swap to your hand cannon of choice or briefly pull out Ghost to proc Lucky Pants and start blasting. Remember to dodge or suppress an enemy to reload your weapon. If you have your super ready, you can cast it to pull your enemies into a tight group. It will also reload your weapon and it triggers the Lucky Pants buff. If you already have the last word readied, you can cast your super and start blasting. For boss phases, start by casting your super to weaken the boss and enable your team to deal 30% more damage. Then unload last word into the boss, dodge to reload, and empty it again before switching to your heavy. Then unload your heavy into the boss. Now throw your grenade and smoke bomb to weaken the boss. If your Lucky Pants cooldown has subsided, then switch back to the last word to start the process again, while waiting for the auto-loading holster to do its thing. If the Lucky Pants aren't ready to be used again, then you can switch to your second hand cannon or your special weapon if you are too good for the double primary setup while you're waiting. Then repeat this cycle until the boss is dead. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, y'all.